This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing today on this wonderful Friday? It is the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You're looking at us on Bama Central. You're looking at us on the Bama Central YouTube channel, on Facebook, on Twitter. You're finding us on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can find us at Joe Gaither6 for all your social media needs. Let's get right into it on a Friday. We're going to have a lot of fun. We invite you to send us a comment, question, query, and complaint. We're going to talk about the NFL draft. We're going to talk about the 3 Alabama players that were selected last night in the first round. We're going to talk about the, 6 or 7 other Alabama players that are waiting to hear their name called either tonight or tomorrow. We'll talk about whether, who landed in good fits and where these other guys can go and so much more, all about the NFL draft last night. So if you got some comments on the NFL draft or some thoughts on the Denver Broncos taking former Auburn quarterback Bo Nix, oh my gosh, I was laughing in my living room chair at that. But maybe Sean Payton can turn him into something. But we're going to talk mostly about the Alabama guys. So if you got any comments on the NFL draft, you can find us at Joe Gaither6 for all your comments, questions, queries, and complaints on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. But let's get it going with the first Alabama guy that was drafted. And I talked about it earlier in the week, J.C. Latham being the most intriguing prospect for me because his variance was so high. His variance was as high as number 5 with the Los Angeles Chargers and really deep into the 20s, just kind of depending on how these tackles went. But J.C. Latham was drafted number 7 overall and was the first Alabama player taken. He was passed over by the Chargers. The Chargers ended up taking Joe Alt to play right tackle out there in Los Angeles. But JC gets drafted by the Titans at number 7, and this is going to end up being, I think, a really, really strong pick for the Titans. I think that what you saw last night was obviously a massive desperation move by a lot of these teams for quarterbacks. Oh, we got to move up and draft J.J. McCarthy. Oh, we got to draft Bo Nix. And okay, even before that, you had Michael Penix right behind, right behind the J.C. Latham pick. Basically, these quarterbacks pushed these good players down. Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels right off the bat pushed a lot of these great players, these blue-chip players, down the board. And so the Tennessee Titans become the beneficiary of that. And their left side of their offensive line, oh, man, it looks really, really impressive at this point. You look at the Titans, and I know maybe you're not an NFL fan, and that's what we're here for. They drafted Peter Skoronski last year. Peter Skoronski's out of Iowa, wasn't he? Let me double-check, though. Was he out of Iowa? Northwestern, another Big Ten school. They drafted Peter Skoronski last year in the first round to play left guard. What was that? The 11th overall pick. Wow, so major investment back-to-back years. Drafting Skoronski at 11 and J.C. Latham at 7. So your man Will Levis is going to have a lot of protection, whether you're a Will Levis fan or not. Coffee in your mayonnaise. They ended up going out and signing Tony Pollard, so he's going to have a pretty solid left side of his line. Obviously, you got Lloyd Cushenberry, Daniel Brunskill, and Dylan Raduns as the other guys on the offensive line. And you'll see if the Tennessee Titans continue to address that throughout the rest of the draft. They got a new head coach in Brian Callahan as they're trying to get over the hump. They had it rolling under Mike Vrabel for a little bit of time, but you know how Windows go in the NFL. It basically closed on them, so they moved on from Ryan Tannehill. They moved on from Derrick Henry, and now they've got Alabama man J.C. Latham. He's going to join Calvin Ridley, so he's not going to be the only Alabama guy on the roster. He's got Calvin Ridley out there as well helping him. Anybody on the defensive side? Nope. As I'm looking down, nobody on the defensive side of the football with Alabama ties, but if you're a Tennessee Titans fan, look, Alabama fans are usually either Saints fans, Falcons fans, or Titans fans, just based off proximity alone. I know my buddy Mason Woods was a huge fan of this pick, J.C. Latham, going to the Tennessee Titans. Look, he's going to get paid. You have to look at the rookie wage scale. He's going to get paid a ton. But the rookie wage scale last year, Tyree Wilson was drafted by the Raiders with this number 7 overall pick. And Tyree Wilson signed a 4-year contract worth $25 million. So J.C. Latham likely going to make around that $25, $26, $27 million when it's all said and done with his contract with the Tennessee Titans. I'm excited about it just from the fact that it's a guy who's playing. He gets to play close to home, close to his home university, close to his alma mater. He will have a lot of familiarity and a lot of fans in the stands. And Nashville is going to be an easy drive for the Alabama fans who want to go see him. So I think it's going to be a good fit for him. They're a young, up and coming team. He's going to be able to be a leader on that team, and I think Will Levis is really, really going to love J.C. Latham. You moved on through the night, and okay, so you had J.C. Latham at number 7. And number 8, I thought, a lot of people thought, Dallas Turner was going to be a shoo-in to go to Atlanta. I had the article ready to go for Dallas Turner going to the Atlanta Falcons, and it did not end up coming to pass. The Atlanta Falcons going with Michael Penix, surprising us all. And there's a lot of debate around this pick, around Michael Penix. I mean, you've got a guy who obviously had a lot of success throwing the football last year. I don't know how much of that success was due to Kalen DeBoer and due to Rome Odunze and due to the rest of the Washington skill sets. But I think that Michael Penix is a good player. Just very interesting to select him given what you signed Kirk Cousins to. But what that kicked off was a bit of a slide for Dallas Turner. Look, my Chicago Bears were right there at number 9, and I thought, okay, they're in play here, but they went ahead and did the conventional thing and took Rome Odunze. A lot of people were wanting the Bears to pair up the wide receiver and the quarterback, Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. Those guys have seemed to gel together in this offseason during the pre-draft process. So a lot of people wanted the Bears to kind of complete that and make that connection come to fruition at the professional level. But really, you're kicking off a bit of a slide. And let's see. Yeah, that's what I wanted right there. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah, and so from there, the Vikings moved up because they wanted a quarterback as well. And the slide is continuing. Basically, you go 14 offensive players in a row. And, I mean, obviously it's an offensive-driven league, but you're looking at good defensive players like Byron Murphy and Dallas Turner just falling. And so what ends up happening is Minnesota is seeing Dallas fall. If it goes to, Denver takes Bo Nix, the Raiders take Brock Bowers, good pick for you, Raiders. The Saints to end up taking a tackle. They're needy for a tackle. The Colts end up taking an edge rusher, but it's not Dallas Turner. The Colts, give credit. The Colts finally bucked the trend and took the first defensive player in the draft. But by that time, you had one defensive player go, Laiatu Latu from UCLA, and then Byron Murphy went, the guy who I really liked, and I wanted the Bears to trade back for. But then Minnesota basically sees, okay, the defensive players have started to go, and you got to give them a lot of credit. They're in a point where they're rebuilding. Yes, you see them take the quarterback with their first pick, J.J. McCarthy, and I don't know quite how that's going to work out. He's got massively mixed reviews. But Dallas Turner is hanging out right there, and the Minnesota Vikings just watched Danielle Hunter walk out of their building. And Danielle Hunter's been a mainstay as their edge rusher, their premier edge rusher in Minnesota for many, many years. So you see Dallas Turner's falling. They see the defensive run of players starting, and boom, they move up from 23 to 17. Not that many picks, but they jump up 23 to 17, and they take Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner became the 3rd defensive player taken on the night, the 2nd overall edge rusher. And goodness gracious, why you got to do this to me, Minnesota? I mean, I'm a Bears fan. Now, why you got to put Dallas Turner in our division? Dallas Turner's going to end up being a pretty good player it's Kevin O'Connell, right? For Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores is their defensive coordinator. He's got a huge pressure package, very well known for bringing the blitz and turning up the heat on opposing quarterbacks. So I got to give the Vikings a lot of credit. The Vikings ended up with a quarterback who they liked, I guess, has got a lot of upside, and then arguably the best defensive player in the draft. You can argue whether you like Byron Murphy better, or you can argue about Jared Verse, but I think that you've got a real good argument for Dallas Turner as the best player in the draft. So you got the best defensive player in the draft at the 17th overall pick. You got to give, tip the cap to the rivals. The Minnesota Vikings ended up with Dallas Turner. And Dallas Turner, I believe I saw his rookie wage scale is worth $17 million. So it's going to be in that $17, $18 million range for Dallas Turner. He becomes a wealthy man. And then lastly, for Alabama, Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold comes at pick number 24. Who was pick number 24 of last year? Pick number 22 NFL draft. So let's find out how much money Terrion Arnold made. Let's see. Oh, goodness gracious. Never mind. Terrion Arnold made a lot of money. 2023 NFL draft pick 24. That's what I wanted right there. See, they've got it all jacked up. All my algorithms, I've got it all jacked up because last year's draft and this year's draft are running together. It was Dante Banks. Oh, gosh. Okay, Dante Banks. What did you make last year? Paste. Dante Banks, NFL contract. $13.5 million. So that's what Terrion Arnold is scheduled to make, basically. Terrion Arnold got picked with 24 with the Detroit Lions. And you got to look, another NFC North win. I think the Bears had a great draft. I feel really good about the first round. But you do look at the rivals and you see Terrion Arnold going to the Detroit Lions, and you see Dallas Turner going to the Minnesota Vikings, and you kind of hate that from a personal standpoint. But from a football standpoint and from an organizational standpoint, the Detroit Lions might have got the biggest win of the night, just as far as like memory goes. Look, the draft is in Detroit, and they're picking late because they had a good season for the first time ever last year. They got to the NFC title game, so they're drafting late, and their fans are there. They're packed in. They've got a pretty good environment going, and everybody's cheering, rah rah, and boom. You see the corner starting to fall. And look, cornerback is a premier position in this league. So very surprising to me the way that the offensive line, the way the quarterbacks, and the way the wide receivers really drove the value down of the edge rushers and the cornerbacks this year. So the corners are starting to fall. You see Quinyon Mitchell gets drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, and okay, you see the Green Bay Packers are sitting right there, and maybe the Packers would have taken Jordan Morgan anyways had things fallen to them. But Detroit, the cornerback is a position of need for Green Bay as well. So Detroit, knowing that, our rival Green Bay also needs a cornerback, they jump up in front of Green Bay. They jump up to 24, and they draft Terrion Arnold, making Terrion the third Alabama player taken in the draft, making Terrion Arnold. How many corners went ahead of Terrion? Was it just Quinyon Mitchell? Eagles, Quinyon Mitchell, Brian Thomas, Terrion Arnold. Yeah, so just Quinyon Mitchell went ahead of him, cornerback from Toledo, 2 picks ahead of him. But here's why I think that they might have won the whole draft, or at least won the night as far as memory goes. Terrion Arnold, you've watched him. You've watched him for the last year here at Alabama basically become not a social media superstar. He's not really on social media, but every single time he's front and center in front of the camera, he steals the show. He is such a personable, likable, really infectious personality that I think that, look, if he wasn't a great football player, you'd want him on your team in some sort of capacity. It absolutely helps that he's one of the 2 or 3 best corners in this draft. So he gets drafted. He comes down to the green room and basically goes from there to turning up with the crowd, celebrating with the crowd, and basically using all of, letting his personality be himself with the fans. And it just became such a moment to soak in on television, watching Terrion Arnold. And look, you cannot ask for really a better landing spot for Terrion Arnold. Obviously, the Detroit Lions are a rival organization of mine, but you look at what they've done over the last 4 or 5 years. They have really put a lot of pieces in place to where they're drafting well, they're scouting well, and they're making they're making the most important things the most important things. The work, the day-to-day grind. And look, I like to make fun of Dan Campbell just because I think he's a corny man, but Dan Campbell gets it. He's a football guy, and he gets it. So, and look, the Lions obviously respect the Alabama Crimson Tide. You look at what they've done in the draft the last 3 years, 3 years in a row. The Detroit Lions go Jamison Williams, they go Jahmyr Gibbs, and then they go Terry and Arnold, and we'll sneak a Brian Branch in the second round in one of the two last year, the Jahmyr Gibbs year. So the Detroit Lions clearly like what they see in Alabama players. I think, even though I'm happy from the Bears' perspective, I think the Lions might have stolen the draft in getting the best cornerback in the draft with the number 24th overall pick. And if he's not the best corner in the draft, that's debatable, and I'll concede that just for the sake of discussion. He's a top. I mean, Caleb Williams is pretty infectious personality. I've been watching a lot of him, obviously, with the Bears connection. But Terry Arnold, he is operating on a different level. His just kind of spiritual connection to people is such a unique thing to see and experience. And every time I've been around him, I've been just impressed by him. And I think he saw that. And I think Detroit experienced that a bit last night. So 3 Alabama players get drafted in the first round last night, bringing Nick Saban's total up at Alabama to 47. 47 first-round draft picks during his, 17-year tenure. And you got to remember 2008 or 2007, that 2007 spring of 2008 draft, it was no one. No one drafted, not in any round at Alabama. And so he comes in, he goes the 2008 year, the spring of 2009, Andre Smith and Kareem Jackson really get it going. And then 47 guys later, Alabama has been dominating the NFL draft really for the last decade and a half. You look at the draft and you see, and you heard, look, I was on a live stream with my friends, Believe in Monsters, our Bears podcast, because we were so excited about Caleb Williams and the number 9 overall pick. If you want to hear me talk a lot more about the Chicago Bears, you can find the Believe in Monsters podcast on all the same platforms that the Joe Gaither Show is on: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. So with that being said, and that caveat, I wasn't able to dial in really to Nick Saban as much as I would like to have it. But when I was able to dial in Nick Saban, when I was listening to him on TV and still trying to do my broadcast with my buddies talking about the Bears, he was incredible. He was absolutely incredible. And whatever ESPN is paying him, Nick Saban might want to go renegotiate his deal right here and now. And okay, there's obviously some bias there just because I enjoy Nick Saban from an Alabama standpoint, but I just was impressed with how prepared he was. I mean, these are 32 players, and you don't get a list of the 32 beforehand. You get a list of about 60 or so to get prepared for. And obviously, the more educated guessers and those with sources can line it up. But there's always going to be surprises, and you got to be prepared for those surprises. Nick Saban was obviously prepared for those surprises. He told a lot of funny stories. He was very insightful the times that I was able to listen to him. Now, what made people go crazy, or what sent social media into a bit of a stir, were his comments on Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell, if you went to bed early, that's okay, because the draft drug on. It goes on every evening. By the time we got to pick 18 or so, I was like, all right, let's get this bad boy rolling and over with. But Quinyon Mitchell got drafted number 22, Toledo cornerback, defensive player, cornerback, gets drafted at pick number 22. And Nick Saban says something along the lines of, essentially says, he was our number 1 player to go into the transfer portal last year. We just never could get him to go into the portal. And so, very interesting. A lot of people are, oh my gosh, was Alabama tampering? Oh my gosh, Nick Saban admitting to tampering. And I don't know, because I don't have any sources and I don't really want to say something that might influence the people's opinions. But look, you're silly if you're not looking around college football. If Caitlin DeBoer is not looking around college football and saying, if he jumps in, we'd like him. If he jumps in, we'd like him. If he jumps in, just across the college football landscape at whatever position that first, at positions of need, and second, at just luxury. Hey, if Arch Manning goes into the transfer portal, you want him. Okay, yes, you want him. You think about some of the better players across college football, and you just ask, if so-and-so goes in the portal, do you want him? Yes. I think there's a little bit of a mixture of Nick Saban and his staff. Look, Nick Saban was a meticulous, tireless worker. Who's to say that he didn't have almost all of college football or a segment of his staff dedicated to deciding, let's evaluate all the juniors in college football. Let's evaluate all the sophomores in college football and start to rank them. And then look, you think about last year's needs. Alabama brought in Trey Amos from Louisiana, and he did fine as a second, third corner during his opportunities. But if you could have pulled in a future first-round draft pick instead, absolutely you're going to do that. And secondly, even if Nick Saban did tamper, even if Alabama did tamper with Quinyon Mitchell, hey, if you get into the portal, we'd really be interested. Hey, if you get into the portal, we've got this much NIL. Hey, if you get to the portal, we think you're going to have a role here and get some playing time here. Even if Alabama did tamper, look, we talked about it one show ago, the last show with Ed Woods and James Brockermeyer. I believe that tampering goes on all over the place. And so if you're trying to be competitive, if you think that you are a serious organization, if you think that you're competing for a national title, then you know what? You do have to dance in the gray area. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Breaking news. You got to dance in the gray area a little bit because, look, you see James Brockermeyer leave with a no-contact tag on. You see Ed Woods jump into the transfer portal from Arizona State talking about, I'm thinking about Alabama. Like, this is the landscape. This is how it happened. Jaden Rashada goes in the transfer portal, goes straight to Georgia. Like, this is just the landscape of college football. And if you don't like it, do something about it. If you don't like it, you got to control the transfer portal. You control the transfer portal, you control all the tampering. Because I'm not calling up, I'm head coach at the University of Alabama, Joe Gaither. I'm not calling up Johnny Five Star. Hey, man, if you go in the portal, I got $500,000 for you. I got $500,000 for you. No, if Johnny Five Star has to sit out, no, I'm not doing that. I might offer him $250 instead, but the money's going to be a whole lot different, and the temptation is going to be a whole lot lower because of the sacrificed playing time and thus the big hit to your value. So Nick Saban, I mean, you get a little burn, maybe a little foot and mouth disease, but what I am taking from it is I'm going to want to be watching pretty much. Look, for ESPN, it's the best case scenario. Anytime Nick Saban speaks, I want to be listening because you might never know, or you never know when you're going to get inside just little nuggets from this year at Alabama or that year at Alabama. He's going to be telling stories like this on TV for the next however long he wants to do it. And so whenever Nick Saban's going to be on TV, you're going to be wanting to pay attention because you never know when you can take a little bit more information and get a little bit more insight on the program. Let's talk about the guys who haven't been drafted. We've got, 3, 6, 7. I've got 7 guys on my list who haven't been drafted, and we'll talk about what their prospects are. Just a reminder, this is the Joe Gaither Show. You're watching us on Spotify, or you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. On Wednesday night, I was over at Druid City Music Hall and had a great time watching Hotel Fiction and watching The Brook and the Bluff. So I want to encourage you guys to check out Druid City Music Hall. Anytime that they're having concerts, you're going to find the next up-and-coming artists, and it is a great little spot to watch a concert. So that's what I was doing on Wednesday. Check out Druid City Music Hall at druidcitymusic.com. You got 7 guys who have not been drafted, and one kind of a surprise. The rest is, is right in line. All right, let's go with the surprise first. Kool-Aid McKinstry did not get drafted. There's always guys every year. This guy's a first-round lock that don't get drafted. It happens every year, and it's unfortunate for Kool-Aid, but is it the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. Kool-Aid's going to get drafted pretty early tonight. The draft starts at 6 o'clock tonight, and I believe at 11 tomorrow, so midday tomorrow for round number 4. But the time clock's going to go a little bit quicker. It starts an hour earlier. You got the second and third round tonight. I think the 3 guys, Chris Braswell, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Jermaine Burton, are all going to get picked early tonight. I think they're all second-round picks, and I think that you're going to see, two factors at play here. One, Kool-Aid McKinstry plays a position of value. So does Jermaine Burton. At this point, you looked at what happened with the wide receivers last night, ending on Xavier Legette and ending on Ricky Pearsall. And, I mean, you had all kinds of wide receivers go off the board. You had the three expected guys, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., and our guy, Roma Dunes. But then you also had Brian Thomas. Where's my list? Yeah, Brian Thomas, whose mother had a hilarious comment. How far did your family come? We came from Baton Rouge, is what she said. Just such a perfect comment. So Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, that's who I was missing. Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, and Xavier Legette all going in the first round. I think because so many wide receivers went in the first round, Jermaine Burton's value just goes way, way up. And look, I had a love-hate relationship watching Jermaine Burton this year. When he was good, he was real good. When he was not good, and when he had some immature moments, not so fun. But I think Jermaine Burton's going to be a really, really impressive pro. And because of the run on wide receivers last night, I think he's going to go fairly early this evening in the second round. I think the same for Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think he and Cooper DeJean are going to see their names fly off the board tonight. I think you can probably see both guys go in the Kool-Aid and Jermaine Burton go in the top 10 picks tonight. So you're going to probably want to be around your television in between 6 and 7:15 to see those guys get picked. And Chris Braswell is going to be the interesting one because how much, I mean, the offensive players ahead in the first round push the defensive players down the board. Chris Braswell was already considered really a second, third round pick going into the draft process. With the positional value kind of shuffling defensive personnel down the board, will Chris Braswell struggle to get picked tonight? Will he see himself fall all the way through the second round and into the third round? Look, if he goes third round, that's still going to be really good for him. I think he's a really underrated football player. I think that people look at him and they want to see more pass rushing ability, but I think that what you've got in him is a really solid player who can play, defense for you for 8 to 10 years and man your edge, play against the run and the pass. So I do think he's going to get drafted tonight, but I think that he's my biggest wild card of the three. I think Jermaine Burton and Kool-Aid McKinstry are going to go pretty dang early, pretty quickly tonight. But Chris Braswell, I mean, obviously important for you just because we want to see everybody have success and go make some money and land in great spots. But Chris Braswell is going to be my biggest concern. Now, Saturday is the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round, and you're going to have 4 guys hanging out. I got Justin Aboigbe, Jason McClellan, Jalen Key, and Will Reichert. And it's going to be a challenging weekend, I think, for the 4 guys. I do. And I don't mean to say that in a bad way, and I hope for the best. I hope that I'm wrong, honestly. But I think that Justin Aboigbe is going to hear his name called on Saturday. But the other three, it might not hear their names called, and it might be better for them not. You ask, oh, Joe, that doesn't make sense to not be drafted. If you follow the UDFA process, undrafted free agent process, once you are basically once you get to the 7th round, it's almost a game of chicken. Do I want to get drafted to Team X? Do I want to get drafted by the Chicago Bears and be the 3rd string, 4th string safety? Let's just talk about it. Yeah, Jalen Key, great example. Do I want to be drafted by the Bears and be the 4th string safety and be a special teams player? Or do I want to basically pick my spot because I'm going to have 2 or 3 or 4 organizations calling me and say, hey, buddy, we want you in our camp. We're going to offer you X dollars. It becomes a negotiation. The rookie wage scale is still in effect, but not as much. It becomes a negotiation, and you can negotiate a shorter-term contract and say, hey, I'm going to show out in my first couple of years, and boom, take advantage of that in free agency. You have more freedom and flexibility if you don't get drafted. Now, if you don't get drafted as well, it becomes that same cat and mouse game. Do I negotiate with this organization, or do I take the first offer and go ahead and get into camp? There's going to be this, how many teams do I play? How many teams do I have on the line? And obviously you need a good agent to do that, and need a good agent to handle that. I'm sure that these Alabama guys are well connected in the football world, thanks to Coach Saban and the Alabama football family. And so I think that they'll be okay. But it is a game of cat and mouse. I don't think that Jalen Key is going to get drafted. I think Jace McClellan might get drafted. I think he might get drafted in the 7th round because he still does have a lot of shiftiness, and he still does have – look, he is an underrated running back, I think. I think he was underutilized here at Alabama, but a lot of that was due to injury and due to a crowded running back room and due to maybe philosophically passing the football, maybe struggling up front a little bit. I think Jace is going to be a good pro when he lands in the right spot. But I'm kind of – I think it's more likely that he doesn't get drafted than he does. So Jalen, I'm going no. Jace, I'm going, I don't think so, but I hope so. And Will Reichert, look, kicker is such an interesting position. And the kind of concept I just described is more at play for Will Reichert than anyone else. I'm a kicker. I play a specialist position. I don't want to get drafted, and I want to go to a position, go to an organization where I can choose my kind of setting. Look, a couple of years ago, the Bears were bringing in every single kicker under the sun, looking for anybody who could kick. Will's going to get a call. He's going to get a chance to be in camp for sure. I'm very, very confident of that. I don't think he's going to get drafted this weekend, but I don't think that's the worst thing for him. I think that he can, look at the landscape, look at the 32 organizations, see whose kicking spots are secure, and basically say, okay, here's where I want to go, and here's the path that gives me the quickest path to actually kicking balls in an NFL game. So you got 7 guys this week left from an Alabama perspective who are waiting to hear their name called. I think for sure you're going to hear 3 of them tonight with Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jermaine Burton, and Chris Braswell. The other 4, Justin Aboigbe, Jace McClellan, Jalen Key, and Will Reichert, I'm not so sure. I'm hopeful. Obviously I want everybody to get drafted. Look, make them the next 7 picks in a row. Let's knock out all the Alabama guys. 7 picks in a row in the 2nd round tonight, and let's call it a day. But it is a celebration of Alabama football, and it is the next step for these guys. And whatever happens at the end of the weekend on Saturday, I think that even if they're not drafted, even if the 3 guys that I just outlined are not drafted, I think they will end up in a camp and with a professional opportunity out in front of them. Let's talk about one more concept before we get out of here, and it is about the NFL draft. We're sticking with the theme here today, and let's talk about the University of Washington. The University of Washington last night saw Michael Penix, saw Roma Dunes, and saw Troy Fontenot drafted. 3 first-round picks. And so, many people, 3-4 months ago, 2-3 months ago, I know time runs all together for me. I don't know if it runs together for you. But a couple of months ago when Kalen DeBoer is hired, it's, oh my gosh, he doesn't develop anybody. Oh my gosh, he's jumped from school to school to school. I mean, it was 1 year at Indiana. It was 2 years at Fresno State. It was 2 years at Washington. Oh, all these guys, he's not developing them. He's got no track record of NFL players. At the time, he really didn't have that good of a track record of NFL players. But now, 3 first-round draft picks are on Kalen DeBoer's notch, on his belt. Michael Penix, Roma Dunes, and Troy Fontenot. Now, obviously, all 3 offensive players. That makes perfect sense for an offensive-minded head coach. But it also, I mean, come on, let's put our pause. Let's put the brakes on and consider how many players are really going to the NFL out of Sioux Falls, anyways. Before Kalen DeBoer, how many players? No offense to Indiana, I know you're a Big Ten school, but how many players are going to the NFL out of Indiana before Kalen DeBoer and after Kalen DeBoer? Same sort of thing at Fresno State. No offense, but you've got Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr and Devontae Adams aren't they Fresno State guys? But really, not that many pros coming out of Fresno State. He gets to a Power 5 program and a pretty good little program in Washington. Not obviously the best program in the Pac-12, but got a pretty good reputation. And boom. 2 years later, he's got guys going into the NFL, and he's going to get more guys as the draft goes on throughout the rest of the weekend. So I say all that to say, look, everybody who wants to basically dance on Alabama's grave, dance on Nick Saban's grave, you're welcome to do that. But I'm not sitting here saying that Alabama's going to win, 6 national championships over the next 17 years under Kalen DeBoer. I think that would be absolutely absurd to consider or to believe, but I don't think the fall-off's going to be as hard as people have hoped for. I think that Kalen DeBoer is going to keep things rolling at a pretty high rate here in Tuscaloosa. So 3 first-round draft picks for Alabama, 3 first-round draft picks for Kalen DeBoer. You got 7 more guys waiting to hear their names called. Nick Saban ends his Alabama tenure with 47 first-round draft picks. Just absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to enjoy his coverage. Hopefully he will be a part of the coverage the rest of the weekend. I don't know what his involvement will be, but basically what he did last night was impressive television. I'm going to be watching it all right there on ESPN, ABC, and the like. You can follow it right here at BamaCentral at BamaCentral.com. As soon as Kool-Aid McKinstry and Jermaine Burton get picked, Chris Braswell get picked tonight, you're going to see articles flying out on BamaCentral.com. You can follow us on the Twitter machine at BamaCentral, on Instagram at BamaCentral SI, on Facebook at Alabama Crimson Tide, on Sports Illustrated. If you are looking for any of those links, you can find it through my social medias at Joe Gaither 6 on any social media channel that you like. We appreciate you guys so much for watching us this week and being a part of the show this week. Tell a friend about the show, and we'll be back to talk to you next week on the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.